Will Joe Biden make it to Election Day? In a lot of ways, November is going to be here before you know it. It's right around the corner. So you're like, well, if he's standing now, he'll be standing in November. But if you're 82 and you're elderly, things can fall fast. We've all had a friend or family member who was older and they're doing great. And they're like not a day over 72. And then when they start to fail, it sadly goes very quickly. Here is Joe, not that long ago. This is from 2019.
$100 billion in loopholes that can't be justified. And folks, the fact of the matter is we can do all we need to do without punishing anybody.
So that wasn't ancient history. It was that long ago. He sounds fine. And here's a clip of him just the other day.
The beer brewed here, it is used to make the brew beer in this refinery. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes. I wonder why he's trying.
The sweater doesn't help him look youthful either, but it will get worse at an accelerating pace. It always does. I'm honestly surprised Joe's made it this long upright, but can he make it another year? Now we can debate that, but there's no debate that he won't make it another 5. like we can talk about it. Will he make it a year? Like maybe he'll make it a year. Will he make it 5 more years? No chance. So the vice president, Kamala Harris, if Biden wins, Kamala will be the president one day. We'll talk more about that coming up with one of our guests. The White House knows Joe is old. This is no mystery. They're going to protect him best they can in this campaign. They can't completely stop him from making a fool of himself. Like just the other day, this picture that Amy Klobuchar took of her and Joe and the boys taking back some brewskis at the bar after a long blue-collar day out on the job site. Ridiculous. But Joe's got the hard hat on backwards. And then when and like no one there knew that it was backwards. Like none of like Amy Klobuchar's people, when they posted this picture, were like, I think the hat's on backwards. Which is hilarious. But then afterwards, the media like tried to be like, no, that's actually forward. And that's not backwards at all, which is great. So listen, they're going to keep making mistakes, of course. But can they protect him with the big thing about how obvious his decline is? They've tried. November 2022, when he turned 80, the White House held a wedding for his granddaughter, Naomi, burying the fact that Joe was turning 80. That was not by accident. None of this stuff ever is. But everyone knows it. There was a poll back in November. It's only going to get worse for him, but there's a poll back in November. 69% of Democrats, 74% of independents, and 89% of Republicans said he's too old for another term. It's a lot of people. The majority of Democrats. So are people going to vote to keep him in there till 2028? When he'll be 86? Maybe. They might. That's what people be like, you're too old to be president, and they'll still vote for him anyway. One reason people can't think that far ahead, but also if you have TDS, man, like forget it. Nothing matters. If you have Trump derangement syndrome, you'll do anything to keep the Nazi out of the White House. Just for comparison's sake, the oldest president alive today is Jimmy Carter. He's hanging on at 98. But he left office at 56. He left office at 56. Joe's 82. Now they should both be living in a senior center. This is a commercial that Trump posted the other day about White House senior living.
At White House Senior Living, our residents feel right at home. Our vibrant facility offers delightful activities and outings, round-the-clock professional care, and exquisite house-made meals.
Well, I've been eating everything that's put in front of me. I've been eating all Italian foods, basically.
And ice cream.
And ice cream, chocolate chip ice cream.
White House Senior Living, where residents feel like presidents.
Gosh, that's so good. That's perfect. So here's the deal. Biden will not resign unless something serious happens, of course. There's just way too much pride. We'll talk with Alex Marlow about this coming up in a little bit. But him being president is the culmination of his childhood dream. So he's never given it up. Not to mention it's good for the family business. So you don't give that up if you're an egomaniac, which he is. So it's going to be interesting to see how the media protects him. My favorite story on this point the best, there's no better example of this, is Woodrow Wilson. In 1919, Woodrow Wilson just got back from Europe, and he was barnstorming across the country to try to get people to support the League of Nations. And he got a bad case of the Spanish flu when he was over in Europe. But he's on this train, and his face muscles started to twitch, and he got nauseous, and he had really bad headaches. And then the left side of his mouth started to sag, and no one could diet anymore. He was having a stroke. So they stopped the tour. He was in Colorado. They stopped the tour, raced back to D.C. It took a couple of days to get to D.C. And that was it. For the rest of 1920, he was in his bed. He was bedridden, kept away from everyone. He tried to run for a third term. He wanted to run for a third term. That was a step too far. But he was confined to his bed. He was president for a whole year. No one saw him except for his wife and his doctor. And he was president for a year. Now, we've shared that story before here on the TV because there was a reporter from the New York World who wrote an article about how the president's never been healthier. Oh, he's youthful and vibrant and has a new lease on life, and it was all a lie, every single bit of it. And that writer won the Pulitzer Prize for that article that he totally made up. So there's precedent for this, and the media is going to do everything they can to protect Joe today. Now, that was in 1920. Is it possible to protect a president the same in 2024? I don't know. Can they hide Joe forever? Maybe. Honestly, maybe. The media may be able to get away with that. Listen, Barack Obama smoked half a pack a day when he was president, and there are no pictures of him smoking in the White House. So the media can control whatever images they want, prevent any from getting out. Remember the video of Hillary fainting at the 9/11 memorial for her election in 2016? Right? The media didn't share that picture. It was just some guy who happened to be standing there, happened to be taking a picture of it. Is the only reason we ever got that. The media, if CNN had video of it, they never would have shared it. Now it's going to be a little trickier. 2020, COVID gave him the perfect excuse to not get out and do anything. And every time he had a rally, it was one of these bizarre drive-in car rallies or something. So everyone can keep their distance, 6 feet to slow the spread. So you can't do that again. So what's he going to do? Well, they'll spin it away. Time magazine wrote an article, The Weaponization of Biden's Age. This whole special we're doing today, this whole conversation, we're weaponizing his age. They said that the American Psychological Association determined that ageism is the last socially acceptable prejudices. And then one of their spins was, people are like, hey, your cognitive faculties start to decline when you're old. And their argument is, oh, your cognitive abilities decline in your late 20s. Okay, all right. He's 82. All right, but see how they're going to spin it around? So it's going to be fun to see how they protect him and how they spin it. And every time Biden makes a mistake, they'll be, oh, you're an ageist or whatever. You've been called a racist, a bigot, all the sexist, of course. You haven't been called an ageist yet, but get ready for that. Listen, I'm to the point now where I want Joe Biden to run. I want him to run. I don't want him to drop out now. The Democrats are floundering with him. He's a total loser. And if a Newsom or a Michelle Obama jump in the race, those two may give the Democrats the excitement they need. Now, we could talk about 2028. That's going to be very intriguing, quite a clean slate in a lot of ways. But I don't want those two running in 2024. There's plenty of gossip that Michelle could run. They're talking about it. Will she do it? We'll talk more about that coming up as well. There's the big Kamala problem, of course, too. But we have two candidates who are known. We had 3 years of Trump pre-COVID, 3 years of Biden. We know what each of them are. The choice is obvious. But if someone unknown comes in, we know Michelle Obama, but they can spin it as oh, she'll be the best president because they can't do that with Biden because we know what a terrible president he is. So the left can concoct this excitement about the magical wonders that will be a Michelle Obama presidency or something. So I don't want to deal with that. I think strategically it's better for Trump if Biden stays just healthy enough to stay in the race so Trump can beat him fair and square. I think Biden, he may pull off an RBG, a Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? So Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have retired when Barack Obama was in office, and then Barack Obama would have just replaced her. But instead she hung on thinking that Hillary would win, and then Trump won, and then she died, and Amy Coney Barrett replaced her, and the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Whoops. So Biden running again, I think, makes it more likely that Trump will win. So I hope he stays. So listen, when we have this conversation with our wonderful guests moving forward and for the next year, I was joking about ageism a second ago, but like this is nothing, there's no ageism here. Getting old is nothing to be ashamed of. I read actually a pretty good article from Scott Turow in Vanity Fair. He's 75. He wrote an article about how Biden needs to hand over the keys to the car. And he's like, listen, I'm getting old. He said almost, I forget stuff all the time. He said, almost every proper noun eludes me after a glass of wine. He said, at 75, I moved to the senior tees. I have trouble climbing stairs. I wear hearing aids. And I did hand over the keys to my younger wife. And it's all really hard, but it's nothing to be ashamed of. I actually wish we valued age more in our country. I wish men and women could move into the sage phase of life more gracefully than we do now. Maybe we could talk about that at the end of the show. So that's one thing, aging gracefully. But we can't let someone who's losing his mind be the president of the United States. We could talk about policy differences, of course. But step one, before we even get to that, step one is more important.